Welcome to the Excellence at Work podcast, where we explore the strategies and best practices that drive business success. I'm Rachel Cooke, COO of Brandon Hall Group and the host of our podcast, along with members of our executive team. In each episode, we'll dive into the latest trends, insights, and real-world examples from some of the most exciting leaders from organizations worldwide. Be part of our journey and learn from the best as we discuss innovative approaches and cutting-edge technologies for talent management, learning and development, leadership, diversity and inclusion, and more. Hi, this is Rachel Cooke with Brandon Hall Group. I'm the COO and the host of our Excellence at Work podcast. Welcome today, and we are going to be talking about functional leadership, the importance of functional leadership, and how to help leaders build upon those skills. And I'm really excited to have join me in our discussion our Chief Client Officer from Executive Education and Lifelong Learning at Darden UVA, Devin Bigoness. Hi, Devin. How are you?
Good morning, Rachel. Thanks so much for having me here. Very excited to join you and complete the trilogy of podcasts that I think we've been doing with you, Ashley Williams and Ann Trumbore and myself. So I'm the third of the trilogy. So great to be here this morning.
Well, isn't there a symbol of threes? There's good luck with that, right?
I hope so. We'll know at the end, but I hope so.
Well, I had a really great time chatting with your colleagues, and each conversation kind of build upon another, and it also, you all demonstrate the passion that you have for the work that you do and the great clients that you have across the different areas that you serve, with helping provide skills and advancing their capabilities in the workplace. So today, again, Devin, can you share a little bit about your background and how you what was your experience in this space, and how have you evolved along the years?
Yeah, great. So thanks so much, Rachel. So I've had the privilege of working in custom executive education in the university environment for about 20 years now. First at Duke Corporate Education in Durham, and most of my time actually at Duke CE was in London, England, as part of their joint venture there. I was in London for about 5 years, and then moved from Duke Corporate Education over to Cornell University and the Johnson School of Management, then the S.C. Johnson College of Business, and then at Cornell University at a university-wide level. And then joined Darden about 2.5 years ago as Chief Client Officer in that role, responsible for the leadership and strategy of our customized set of offerings for military government organizations, for corporations, for trade associations on a global basis. And so it's funny, it's been 20 years in this industry. Started my career in sports marketing and sports broadcasting, and really knew about executive education because my father was a business school professor for a number of institutions. Most longly was the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And so knew about executive education, but always thought I would do something in the sports marketing or sports broadcasting field. And then when an opportunity came to cross over, I already knew a lot of the vernacular or the language of university-based executive education. And so really enjoyed being able to transition to that, first at Duke and then at Cornell, and now most recently at the Darden Executive Education and Lifelong Learning within the Darden School of Business at UVA, long title there. But really enjoy the impact that we're able to have. I really believe that education drives progress in both societies and organizations and individuals. And so getting a chance to do that on a daily basis, work with the great faculty at Darden and at UVA to really work closely and partner with organizations to do that. It's a great way to sort of feel like you're driving impact, creating progress, linked to the mission really of UVA and also of Darden to do that.
Excellent. And you have a great background, interesting background. I love to hear and learn about, how people fall into either learning or education or aid for that matter. Some may start in their career in the beginning, but not often. So I think it's all the richness of all of the different experiences that you have kind of help shed light on what, I think education and learning is so important, and something, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, even if you're exiting the workforce, you still kind of have to educate yourself or continue to educate yourself to kind of understand the environment around you. Having elderly parents and aging parents and helping them with their technology and just kind of day-to-day things, from those tiny things that you need to continuous have a mindset for for curiosity, which is really important. And then going back to the workplace, I mentioned we're talking about functional leadership, and you've been doing a lot of work there. How do you define what is the definition of functional leadership?
Yeah, so functional leadership are executive education, leadership development, lifelong learning programs that happen within typically a single function of an organization, right? So the function, if you think of it in terms of horizontals and verticals, right? The verticals of an organization tend to be finance or human resources or marketing or operations. And then there's also the sort of horizontal lines, which are levels of the organization, right? Everything from new hire all the way up to, the C-suite. And so functional leadership is a great way to combine that sort of integration to a function, right? So if I'm in finance or HR or operations, there needs to be an element of technical depth, right? So I need to understand the trends affecting finance, right? Or what are the human capital trends if I'm an HR leader? And then I also need to understand the complexity of the organization and how do all the pieces fit together in terms of to be a better business partner. So my seat at the table is HR or talent, but I also need to work on how are we growing globally, or how are we expanding new markets, or new products. And so the fun thing about functional leadership programs is you get to combine that trends in the function, so what's actually happening in that area, as well as what's happening at the macro level, right? What's happening organizationally. And if you can get leaders, a lot of times there's a thinking of a way to frame this, which is calling leaders T-shaped leaders, right? So they're both deep, if you think of the vertical axis of a T, and then they're broad, right, of the broad axis of the T. And so typically functional leaders that are most successful can speak both the language of the function really well, right? They're very technically deep and sound, and they also understand, okay, how does HR play a role in the overall strategy and growth of that company? And so that's really where a lot of the programs, including, frankly, many of the ones that have been blessed to win Brandon Hall Learning Awards over the years, are sort of in that space, right? So this year, obviously, we were excited that Kohler won for some of their marketing and supply chain programs, or Capital One won for their Capital One awards for their technology leadership program. So again, programs that are recognized for the impact, the ROI within a function. And so it's a great way to do that. The other side of programs is horizontal, right? You want to develop emerging leaders or new leaders or C-suite, succession planning as some examples of programs we've done. But the functional leadership is really exciting to work with a CFO or a CHRO on his or her sort of functional areas in how do we be better at that.
And it truly helps the leaders be able to understand the business better and to make better decisions around what are the needs of the business, whether it's hiring or new product launches or downsizing, for the sake of being able to pivot and adapt to a new trend in the market. And also, you mentioned a few of your clients, some of the recognition that they received for providing these opportunities to their workforce. So congratulations. And in fact, Darden received 10 awards this year across different clients, the lifelong learning and education of UVA. So again, congratulations. I should have mentioned that in the beginning.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's an honor, and also a great honor to work with such great organizations that we work with, that believe in education, believe in learning and development, and then also great to partner with you and Brandon Hall in recognizing that and sort of actually giving that kind of internal and external recognition as another source of value for the programs, right? Obviously, the main ROI for those programs are what do the leaders go on to do and how do they help the organization progress. But it is also great, to be recognized. And who doesn't love the Academy Awards of Learning and Development, right? That was a lot of fun to be with you all a couple weeks ago for that, and great to sort of be with our people who really think about this and believe very strongly in this, and great organizations that we partnered with. We're very fortunate to do that, and obviously excited about doing it again potentially, for the upcoming year.
We thank you for being part of it and for making it so special. And it's companies like you that are part of our community, and we're very fortunate to be able to partner with you and other organizations around the world. You saw how many companies that were there from all over. I think we had representation of maybe 20 different countries and across the nation, over 30 states. So it was remarkable. And again, we have a great team at Brandon Hall Group. We have an extended team of judges that are from around the world, that are independent and that provide their time and expertise. And they feel also very privileged in being able to recognize or to be able to take a look at what's happening. So it's a twofold. It's recognition, but it's also learning on our part. It's taking a look at or what companies are doing and the best practices and the impact that they are having with examples that you just demonstrated around going back to functional leadership. What are some of the other drivers, would you say, why companies are diving deeper in providing this type of development for helping advance skills around or competencies around these areas?
Yeah, so there's definitely a couple reasons for that. I think one, if you think of sort of where technology and sort of, Silicon Valley's influence has been felt, there has been a sense of if you think of it as sort of a product manager mindset, right? So the leaders that can embrace the product management mindset, truly understanding their product, but also all of the functions around that. So, if you think if you're a product manager in the technology space, you understand how to finance that venture, how to market that venture, how to, operationalize that venture. And so I think to counter or to sort of link to that, functional leadership has to be fully embraced to understand how not just to think of the world from a finance standpoint or from an HR standpoint, but actually think of it as sort of an integrated enterprise. So I think that functional leadership and sort of HR and learning, but also sort of C-suite, functional heads have realized that they really do have to develop both sides of that coin, right? They really have to develop sort of both the technical expertise as well as the product manager mindset, even if you put that sort of in quotes, of leaders in the organization. So I think that's one is the the influence of technology and how fast that now makes the world go forward. The second is really the technical acumen is changing so fast, right? If you think of the influence of technology, of AI, of many things in the world. And so whether it's human capital management or supply chain or marketing, I mean, think how fast digital marketing has taken the marketing function over the last 5 to 10 years. And so that was a lot of the focus of this, for example, the program we ran with Kohler on digital marketing and data in marketing, to say how can you develop that sort of comfort in knowing what's happening. A lot of times learning development programs can be a great sort of what actually is at the forefront of what's happening, right? Bringing in faculty or thought leaders who research and do a lot of work in the latest and greatest areas of what is happening. And so I think that's the second main driver, is that, the technical acumen is changing so fast, right? And so I think the taking the time, engaging on that, not to do a plug, but on your Brandon Hall HR Outlook 2025, one of the stats that I think was that stood out to me was that 47% of organizations say that AI is going to dramatically affect L&D in 2025. Right. So if you're an HR leader, you really have to understand both what does that mean for AI and learning, right? How is AI going to drive and be a part of learning and development programs, as well as also having the broader conversation to sort of lift our heads up and say, how is AI really affecting our business? Right? Whether you're in, Capital One or Kraft Heinz or any organization, or frankly, Darden or Brandon Hall, how is AI affecting our business? Right? How is it what are some of the cutting edge forefronts? And the third thing, Rachel, I would say, and this is both with functional leadership, but also just with executive education as a whole, is learning and development can be a great experimentation area, right? I'd much rather somebody come to a program in either Charlottesville or DC or, wherever, and make the mistake there rather than back out in the workplace, right? So maybe you learn an AI tool and then you try to experiment with it in terms of some of the new things that allow you to do. But if you make a mistake, it's better to do it when you have faculty around you and peers around you and you're in a relatively safe space, rather than, let me go back to the workplace and try that, when if it fails, there's higher consequences, right? And so I think the third reason that functional leadership is amplifying is giving people that sort of sandbox, or giving people that place to experiment when they can truly learn and develop and, try out new things, make new connections with their fellow peers, have, increased support networks for kind of trying new things. And so the experimentation factor of sort of the, fail fast, try it, learn, be better, I think is a key part of functional leadership, particularly as the world is moving so fast.
And just a few points I want to add to what you were just talking about. Well, the stats that you mentioned from the HR Outlook from our study, you're right. How, companies are reporting how AI is going to impact their business is a pretty high percentage. However, if you look also at how companies reported on how well equipped or how ready they are for it, the stats are pretty low. Um, maybe a third of companies felt ready, and I think
Mhm.
that's probably being kind. I think we need to, or whether it's your organization or educational institutions or HR, they really need to partner and they need to figure out how to get their leaders ready, how to get their technology functions ready, how to equip teams to utilizing these tools and embracing them, quicker than they were planning for. So I think now it's more of a sense of urgency that an awareness that they need to take a bigger leap and action than, discussion. Then also, we see in our research another advantage for functional development or programs to help with functional skills is it's also ties into talent mobility and engagement retention. Because oftentimes there's been such a trend that people come into an organization, they stay a few years and then they leave because they don't think they can advance or that there's these opportunities. And we had a lot of discussions too in some of our leadership sessions about there are a lot of opportunities sometimes at organizations, but it's not made aware or there's not enough structure around it or it's more in pockets, and so I think the more that this can be made available and also show the benefit and impact, it'll help drive greater retention and engagement and developing that mid population that's not necessarily in that top percentile as an A player, right? But the larger population is somewhere around B and C. So if we can move that population up to with greater skills and greater potential, that's going to equip them and the organization for greater success. How, Devin, are you measuring? I mentioned some of the benefits that we're seeing. How do you measure how these programs impact the organization or the individual? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean that's obviously one of the magic questions that we deal on a day-to-day basis with our clients of the ROI of learning and how do you really measure that? I think there's certainly a couple ways that clients think about that, and it really has to be. I mean, part of the narrative we use when we're customizing programs is what's the organizational strategy? Therefore, what are the critical capabilities you have to enhance or develop to execute on that strategy? And then you design education and learning to help them do that, right? So the tighter you can integrate that story, the better, right? So we're trying to be innovative and go global. Okay, what are the capabilities now that you have to think about? Well, it's entrepreneurial mindset, it's global mindset, it's strategic thinking, it's some of the things that would be integrating to that. And then, okay, let's design learning that stretches people and develops their capabilities in those objectives. So the first key point is having that very tight integration of that sort of story of strategy to capabilities to education, right? So, and if you're doing that, you are going to get into some really interesting sort of key insights from what does that actually mean for metrics, right? So a couple examples, and you even alluded to these in the setup to this, is if part of what a chief talent officer is thinking about is how do I retain, recruit, develop the best talent I can, right? And so if retention is a key tool, let's put some metrics around that, right? Let's see, does this group of people that we focus on, do they, do we retain them, right? And particularly we've worked with some clients where they identify sort of key inflection points, right? When people tend to leave an organization, right? Whether it's age bound or it's a sort of level, as you said, they start hitting, a ceiling, or they start hitting barriers. How do you intervene at that point to increase retention, right? And then sort of think about that and how does that retention rate compare to the retention rates in the organization more broadly? But we have a lot of clients, and one that won an award this year as an example was the organization Milliken, right? And Kohler has done also versions of this, and some other organizations have as well. But Milliken and Kohler are great examples where the way that they track ROI was based on the application of business projects, right? So the thinking is, let's give you some new information. Let's provoke you. Let's give you some new capabilities to think about your business differently, and then immediately apply that with business mentorship, coaching, faculty thought, kind of leadership in helping push teams or individuals to think differently. And then they present those projects, right? In the Milliken example, it was presented in sort of a Shark Tank kind of approach, right? Where they actually pitched to a group of internal and external, Darden faculty, but also corporate leaders to say, if you were to invest in this project, here is the anticipated, return on investment that you could get, right? So it's sort of push people to be different and then expect them to be different, right? Is sort of the business projects. The great thing about that is it drives enormous value. It's very applicable. You're instantly making both the individual be better as well as the organization value, return on investment there a lot clearer than, it could be, could be the case. The other thing that does, particularly when we've done this with emerging leaders or sort of leaders that you're preparing to take a step up, is giving them that opportunity to think at a higher level, right? So with one client, we did a C-suite -1 program. So leaders that were we thought maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, they could be C-suite candidates. And we gave them the opportunity to think at a C-suite or a board level, engagement. So they got to think and operate at that level to see, what does this actually look like to be a CHRO or a CFO? And that obviously was very eye-opening for some people, right? To see sort of what that looks like. And so those are some of the ways. The other interesting example from an ROI standpoint is you have to think about ROI before you design the program, right? So the mistake that some clients make is, we design this interesting program, and then they say, okay, now how do we measure that investment once it's already delivered? And the unfortunate thing is, you can do some things that sort of catch you up in that. But the best client programs are the ones that think about that as before they design the program. So, and then they could even we had one client who did in the professional service space, that did before and after surveys of how comfortable or confident or satisfied are you with your ability to do X, Y, or Z. And then the program focuses on X, Y, and Z. And then they measure, did it move the needle? And in some cases, the results were very strong, right? How confident are you expressing your own leadership brand, or the values of the organization, or thinking differently in, scenario planning strategies? And then if you focus on that during the program, the ROI can be very strong on, we clearly can track that. But certainly ROI and getting return on investment, clients think about it. Whenever we're customizing programs, one of the first questions is, what are you really aiming towards, and how will you know you've been successful? And, some clients say, they know leadership development matters. It's sort of the education really matters, and they believe in it. Some people have to, some clients and organizations want to get very, very practical in, let's measure the dollar amount that, projects or impact is. And in our business, as a chief client officer, I sit across a spectrum of clients, and you meet them where you are or where they are, and then help kind of progress them towards having clear, so that stakeholders, whether it's the CEO or other senior stakeholders, can say, what was the value of this program? And you have some good answers there. So those are some of the ways that I think organizations are thinking about it, but it obviously is rapidly evolving, and it's typically on a client by client basis, given every business is a little different.
Right. And you gave some really good examples and some concrete ways to think about, whether you're measuring from the very beginning or you're reassessing kind of the needs and adjusting, or if things change. And as you mentioned, each organization is unique, and then there are maybe perhaps some similarities that you can apply or leverage, when we are seeing something that is working. But again, you still, and you still need to kind of think about the environment and how that's going to apply. But we do certainly see the benefits and the research from your clients and our research, how beneficial this is for, equipping your managers, your leaders, to understanding a broader context of the business. It's only going to give you, better insight and help elevate your conversations with cross-functional teams at that level, and even at the very highest level, but also at mid-level. There's a lot of cross-reference or cross projects that are happening across teams now. So if you're going to work with someone in marketing, and you're in sales, or you're in research, or you're in product development, the more that you can understand what they are doing and come to the table with a better appetite to what is happening, then you have a better possibility of executing and developing your initiative, or developing your relationships as well, which is also part of helping you as the individual and the organization excel.
Yeah, the way that a lot of our clients think about that is both on the content and context side, right? So the content is, what are you really trying to learn? How do you do it? But as you said, the context that you might be operating in is very different. If you're understanding a fast moving growth, digital marketing environment, or in a HR or different environment. And so the context, really matters to those types of programs. And the other way to think about it, Rachel, is a lot of our clients sort of, when they're designing these kind of programs, think about it in either big to small or small to big. And what I mean by that is they sort of start, day one of the program is, what is the biggest possible macro way we can understand what's happening in the organization, right? What's happening strategy, what's happening macro, politically, et cetera. And then over the course of the program, you get smaller, right? You go start with the organization, and then maybe you get functional trends on day 2 or session 2. And then you start talking about, okay, how do we lead the organization? How do we lead teams? How do we lead others? How do we lead ourselves? And then lead change is sort of the final one, right? So there's one client we worked with had sort of almost like it sort of was a wedge, right? Start big. And then over the course of the program, you get closer to the individual. The flip side of that is the small to big, right? How do you start with the thing that is closest to most people, which is themselves, right? So start with emotional intelligence and start with, communication skills. And then you start, as you expand, it gets more complicated, right? It's self, then others, then teams, then functions, and then the business, right? So those are 2 different examples of sort of which direction does a client want to go, and both have advantages. And I've seen it done effectively both ways. To your point, that's also how you then either layer in that broader context of, from a functional leadership or really just any leadership development program, how do you understand sort of what are you most responsible for? And then take it out to the biggest possible view, which is what's happening in the world. And, ideally, how does that company get there first?
Good advice. Great way to wrap up our discussion today. Looking at it from a very granular to a broader, or broader to smaller. So, or small to big. So, again, as you said it a few times here, it's really kind of understanding what is unique and what is your, from a business perspective, what are you trying to accomplish? And all this can be very relevant and very impactful. And again, something that is critical for us to be forge forward and to be successful in our function, in our business as leaders. So, Devin, thank you so much. Anything that you would like to wrap up with as we end our discussion today?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a couple last thoughts. One, certainly the pace of change, as we all know, and we all read the news, things are, there's the VUCA analogy, right? Everything is sort of volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. I think that summarizes 2025 fairly well, from how fast this is changing. The other thing that's interesting, I would say, in terms of a lot of the work we do with clients, sort of, there's 2 advantages to sort of what we're seeing. One is the use of technology to create more specialized, focused learning journeys, right? So whether it's with a cohort or with individuals, how does technology really help you in creating a robust learning journey? We all know that one way of learning doesn't fit everyone. And so a lot of our clients are really saying, okay, based on the learning objectives, how do we design a potentially a prolonged learning experience that is asynchronous, it's synchronous, it's digital, virtual, like we're doing right now. It's in-person programs when you really want to go deep and have that kind of those key discussions, coaching, mentorship. So the number of different methodologies, somebody said recently that I like so I'll just borrow it. The aperture of learning is so much broader now than it's ever been. Right. It used to be that it was perhaps very focused. You knew there was 3 ways you could do it. And so it was really just, how do you mix those 3? Now, I think I don't even know what the number is, but it's almost infinite, right? Of the number of types of experiences that you could have as a client. And then the other thing that I've been impressed by, and obviously I'm biased in this, but I probably should be, is, from the Socratic case-based method, which is still one of Darden's sort of go-to methodologies. The analogy that is used is no person stands in the same river twice, right? And what I mean by that is 2 different organizations could read the same case about, NVIDIA or, an organization in the current environment and take the discussion in 2 very different ways, right? And every person reads it, talks about it in the content and context that matters to them. And so I've been having been in this business for a while, but have been at Darden now about 2.5 years, have been really impressed the number of times I see our faculty, either virtually or in person, take the discussion to a really interesting place where that's where the participants wanted to go, right? They wanted to sort of, when they read a case about, integration or the, congruence in an organization, they have some really interesting conversations about what does that mean for us? And it contextualizes it. So it is not a passive lecture based, education methodology. that's one of the things I've been most impressed by over the last, say, 2.5 years. And the third thing I would say is this is an ongoing process, right? Learning and development, I think, is more valuable now than it's ever been in terms of helping leaders and organizations advance themselves and the organization. And the fact that we have to do that in both itself, depth of impact and depth or breadth of scale, right? So we still have to drive impact in the individuals, but you have to do it now at such a broad scale. And technology allows you to do that. And so with some of our, we work with one financial service organization where over the last year and a half, we have impacted, 1,600, 1,700 people, which is by, impactful learning methodologies. And so that in, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago might not have been possible, right? Or to do that with the kind of impact. So the thing that I'm excited about is, as you probably hopefully are, learning and development is a critical component of what organizations have to do. They have to learn fast, move forward. And as we sit sort of in that ecosystem, we think it's an exciting place to be sitting in helping our clients to navigate that and drive that forward, and really excited about the future ahead of being able to do that through new technologies, through impact, through scale, and just really helping clients to achieve their strategic goals through education.
I agree. I think you said it well about all the different things that are available to us now, and it continues to evolve. And of course, with the revolution of technology, it's going to forge us even further, quicker, faster than we can ever imagine. So it's an exciting journey, and I'm glad that I'm in this industry, and I'm glad that also we have great partners such as you and your team at UVA, and I'm excited to see what is in store for us for 2025, and also planning ahead for next year for our Excellence Conference. It's going to be even greater, and with great support from you and your team. Thank you.
Right. Well, Rachel, thank you for all you do, and also Brandon Hall does. We're thrilled to be a proud sponsor, and it was a great, both, as you said earlier, celebration of learning, but also I talked to a number of participants and ourselves felt this as well. It was also a great learning experience for us as well to be around our peers and our clients and contacts, and really, as we take our own medicine, right? As we tell clients they have to be lifelong learners, we should do that as well. So thank you for what you do at Brandon Hall in helping us all become, better lifelong learners.
Thank you. And same here. Thank you for helping us continue to be lifelong learners. And until the next time we chat, hopefully very soon. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and take care.